Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central. And here's your host, Bob Hickey.
And welcome to another fantastic episode of Foxborough Central. I am Bob Hickey, your host, thanking you for taking a little bit of time to join with me and my guests as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough the gem of Norfolk County. Speaking of gems, I'm here with one of our hidden gems, David Brown. Dave is my guest.
Hey, how are you, Bob?
And we're not here to talk about some of your accomplishments and some of the things you've done, although we could make an entire program on that.
Not today. Maybe.
Zoning board?
Yep, 21 years, yeah.
Raised two kids through the Foxborough Public Schools.
Yep, they're
very
doing
successful.
well.
Michael and Sandra,
Yeah.
Your lovely wife, Carmela.
Yep.
And one of the other things that Carmela and Dave do that I also share in this, I'll say joy in, along with my wife, Kathy, and my kids, Katie and Kevin, is we like to go camping.
Right.
Do we not?
Do we not? We go several times a year.
We've gone several times a year. We have a men's weekend. We go family camping, a little trailer trash, a lot of fun, right?
Right, oh, absolutely.
Now, sometimes we have a show that indulges my need for information. Sometimes we have a show that indulges my need to push a cause. Today, we're going to have a show that pushes my need to learn about cool outdoor cooking. And one of the things that always intimidated me about going camping was, how do you cook the food? You know, cook over a fire, you got all the black, the grit from the fire getting on the bottom of your pan. You got to soak the bottom of the pan to get the soot off of it.
Awful, yeah.
It burns, it's nasty. And you can't cook cool things like lasagna and cake on an open fire, right? In fact, you could never even think about doing that at a campfire, could you?
Absolutely not.
Except for cast iron cooking.
Cast iron cooking, Dutch oven cooking. It's a lot of fun. We experimented with it maybe 8-9 years ago.
We've been playing with it, yeah.
And then I got hooked on it. And you know, my phrase is, if you can cook it in an oven at home, you can cook it outside on a Dutch oven. And as Bob's mentioned, we've cooked roast, we've cooked whole chickens, we've cooked unique casserole type dishes, all apple pie, stew.
Yep. Cobbler, we've made cobbler.
Cobbler, and quite often we start off the afternoon with appetizers, and we make up some sort of a cheese dip, a relish kind of a dip on the Dutch oven.
And part of that also is just not being afraid to have a little fun, and also not being afraid to experiment, and of course also going camping with people that will never make fun of you. And you would never make fun of me, right, David?
Absolutely not.
No, and I would never make fun of
We
you.
love your column, Bob. We just can't wait for it.
Oh. So speaking of which, well, actually we're not speaking of that at all, but speaking of which, let us start talking a little bit. And as we talk, we're going to show a few pictures of some successful cast iron cooking. But you know, the real issue here is not of what can't you do, but what really can you do.
Right.
So I'm going to put my coffee cup, I know this is going to be a first for Foxborough Central fans, so I'm going to put my coffee cup down, and I'm going to help out. So I'm going to be your helper this morning.
Okay.
Dave, I'm off in the woods. Where do you get this stuff from?
I've bought most of this up at the Bass Pro Shop, actually.
Okay. So what is this thing, first of all?
This is called your cooker table. It's all metal. It sets up. There's leveling legs on it, which is because you are outside. And the deflector, kind of a windshield safety hood in the back.
So it's not absolutely necessary, and I don't have
This
one.
is an optional thing.
But this is nice to have, because as you said, the wind deflector, it allows for a more controlled cooking environment. And also, you don't scorch somebody's lawn if you're cooking on
In our early days, when we started cooking, we would bring a patio block with us and just set it down on the ground and put our coals and put our ovens on top of that.
Because what we're cooking with is charcoal.
We cook with charcoal. You can cook with wood coals, but we do charcoal. It's easier to kind of regulate your temperature and have consistent heat throughout your fire bed.
And that's no different than any other type of cooking. If you're cooking in an oven, you got to turn the oven on whatever the recipe calls for. So part of it is knowing what your recipe is and then matching to
The number of
create
coals.
your heat that you want. And the fun thing about this is, I'll say fun because it always seems to work out for me, but is trying to make sure that temperature is regulated and that you have enough coals, and you've got coals regenerating, because you have something that's going to cook for an hour and a half. You have to have a constant flow of coals coming along. So you have this other piece, which I don't own. I love this though. It's called a chimenea.
Chimney, just a
chimney. And it looks like a sifter, but it is nothing more or less than, if you can see that, it's nothing more or less than a funnel with air holes. Now, what do you do with this?
You put your charcoal in this
All right,
to
so
begin with.
I'm putting charcoal in by...
We carry, by the bucket, and some lighter fluid.
Lighter fluid is a good thing.
And you light it, and basically because of the arrangement of the chimney, you get a nice updraft. Your coals get going quickly.
But we don't have to use lighter fluid, do we?
No, we can use, and actually quite often as my initial starter is I collect Bob Hickey columns throughout the year. And I feel something needs to be done with them, and they make great. Stuff a couple of them in the bottom, and then put the coals on top, and you'll get a good fire every time.
Well, Dave...
And a certain amount of self-satisfaction, too.
It just so happens we have a Bob Hickey column here.
Free pass.
So you're saying that you take this and you crumple it up...
In disgust.
In disgust. Unless I'm agreeing with you on a point, in which case it gets framed, right?
Right.
And you put it underneath, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So you put it underneath, and then...
Coals go in top.
Coals. So we're going to shovel some coals.
Like this.
I'm not a good coal shoveler, but we'll do my best. I'm more of a coal dumper.
And we fill it up usually just a couple inches below the top.
Okay.
And we light it, and we have to wait a while for the coals to get going.
But the chimney, the way it works, with just a couple of newspaper balled up, that will light it. You don't need any lighter fluid.
Right.
I don't need no lighter fluid, is what you're saying.
And you get a good updraft, and as we know, heat rises, fire rises, and the coals will be going pretty quickly.
Okay. So I didn't bring my matches with me. Did you bring any matches?
No, but I usually use a little lighter.
Well, through the magic of television, then we're just going to pretend this is cooking up. Also, I suspect that here at Studio A at lovely Foxborough Cable Access Studios here on Central Street, 28 Central Street, they would probably frown on us burning down.
And this really is, we should make sure everybody understands, this is not an indoor activity.
No, this is outdoor.
You don't do this in your kitchen. You want to do it out in your backyard.
So these things are going to cook. Now, as I'm making a recipe, I see you brought a chart with you. Is this chart?
Yeah.
Is this a pretty consistent chart?
It's a temperature chart. And basically it tells me based on the diameter of the Dutch oven that I'm using and the temperature that I want the oven to heat up to. It tells me how many coals I should put on the bottom and how many I should put on the top.
Now, one of the cool things about this also is that, and I see here we have a 14-inch Dutch oven, and many of us have these in the garage already. Many of us had these. Our parents had them. Our grandparents had them. Cast iron doesn't go bad. No. It can get rusty, though. Is there a way to recondition it? Say we go up into the attic and we find Grandma's old skillet. Is there a way to recondition it?
You just get some steel wool and just scrub all that rust off, and then you can apply some vegetable oil, or they have stuff that they sell that reconditions it. You do want the inside of the pot to be clean and, not rusty. So outside really, doesn't matter.
So really, steel wool is all you need.
Right.
And a little bit of elbow grease.
Right.
Excellent. And the will. Or some young kids to help you out. So we've got a 14-incher here, and you also brought a 10-incher and an 8-incher. Now, we do something called stacking.
Right.
And there's a couple benefits of stacking. One is it looks really cool. But two, the coals you put underneath here are heating up the table. But the coals that you put on top while heating the top of whatever you're cooking can also heat the bottom of whatever that one is going to be. So when we bring that one up, and if we were to put coals down there and then put that, then you'd have a double stack. So you have your lovely stew going, and now maybe you make a rice dish.
Yep.
And then, of course, appetizers on top. So the other thing to note is when you go shopping for these, many of them come without feet, many of them come with feet. Yours all have feet. Mine do not, which is a never-ending cause of angst among the Hickey household. But one of them that we do have is an old bean pot that was handed down, so we kind of go with that.
Yeah. Well, and the point of the feet, as I understand it, is it allows for some airflow underneath to keep the temperature even. So, and also they work out better if you were to do a wood fire and go into that with your Dutch oven. You're going to put some elevation over the coals.
Now we see some pictures of some
I've
successes.
seen them as high as 8 high. I've seen pictures.
Really?
And I think our record is 4. I think we had
I think you're right. Well, you know, when we go camping next, we're going to have to shoot for 5.
shoot for 5.
Drive for 5.
Somebody's got to buy another oven.
Well, we have between us, I think we can make it work. So with the feet on this one, obviously you don't have to. There are people, and I've done this in the past, gotten some stones and laid them on there amongst the coals. So because the important thing is that if you don't want to lay it on and be dependent upon the coals, because coals will burn.
The heat gets out of control. Too.
Right. Now, something that I do, and you talked about oiling, and it is important, as with any cast iron skillet or oven, to have them well oiled. But something that I do is I'll line it with aluminum foil, and that way there's no cleanup. Because one of the other nasty things about cooking is the cleanup. And if you're cooking outdoors and you're doing a slow cook for, say, an hour and a half, it can make a bit of a mess. Do a single layer going this way and a single layer going that way of aluminum foil.
Heavy duty foil. Heavy duty foil. Double layer it, and make sure you got it tight so there's no place for leakage.
Yeah, tuck it
and
down.
If you do that good, it's a no-brainer. Clean up. You just pull that foil out, maybe wipe down the inside, and store away for the next meal.
Now, I'll take this as an example. We recently went camping, and one of the things that my son cooked was a pineapple upside down cake.
Right.
And it came out
perfect.
Perfect. It came out perfect. The recipe was exactly what it said on the box. There was nothing different. We just had to figure out the heat ratio according to the chart. And we all know I follow a recipe to the T. Not. But you know, it worked out great. And it's one of those things where it's easy enough to check, but when it comes out, it really is cool. This pineapple upside down cake, flip the whole thing up, make sure no ash got into it, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. What else did we cook this past week?
We had the cornbread. I'm not sure what we called it, but we had cornbread with salsa and some beef in it, all mixed together. It was great.
Mexican casserole.
Mexican casserole.
Put the raw cornbread in the bottom, and then put cooked ground beef spiced with the taco seasoning mix in the middle, some salsa and cheese on top of that, and then the cornbread cooked up around it and made for a pretty cool meal.
Sure was.
All in the Dutch oven?
All in the Dutch oven.
And the aluminum foil, when we're done,
we did it in a big Dutch oven and served the 12 people, I think we served.
Yeah, it was pretty
with that, and that's where that came from. We have in the past done entire roast beef.
Yes.
We've done meatloafs. We've done chickens, whole chicken.
We've also done, and as you mentioned, made the salsa, using a little Velveeta cheese, using a little fresh salsa, and made a nice dip. So I think the message here is that anything you can do in your oven at home, you can also do in a Dutch oven out in the woods. So there's no reason not to get out and go camping. Clean up. I see you brought a tin with you.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about handling these things, though.
Sure.
Don't you think we should do that? Oh, I'm sorry, not supposed to do that. Let me put my coffee over here. You know, we have to remember that these are hot. When you're cooking them, they're hot. So you're wearing a glove, and you have a handle device.
So these are the basic tools of the trade.
Right,
it's a handle device.
That can lift the whole thing off, because we may, if we want to start checking how the bottom oven is doing, we got to take all the other ovens off.
And then we have a couple trivets.
We have some trivets, and we just set them down. Remembering that it's hot, you want to go easy. The other thing, of course, you want to look inside, and you can and I always pull the cover straight and slow, and you can check inside.
And here
and
you'll
see
notice
that that's not perfectly clean.
Well, it's nicely oiled, and that's the important thing when you're using iron. And you'll see a remnant of the aluminum foil from
That's right.
From one of the cooking experiences. So, no kidding, I do like to use my aluminum.
So it's critical if you're going to get into this to have, and they call it a lid lifter, and some trivets. Trivets are not absolutely critical, but they're good to have.
Okay, so we've cooked our meal, we've enjoyed our meal. It's now time to clean up. It's not all that hard, just a matter of getting your whatever you're going to dispose your coals in, and a whisk broom.
Whisk broom, and we take the wind deflector off. We won't do that here, but there is an opening, and we can just sweep all the ash out. And what we do with the ash, usually when we're camping, is we get it in a bucket and then we take it over to the fire pit and just dump it in there.
Because a clean campsite is a nice campsite, isn't it? Leave no trace.
Leave no trace.
And then, my friend, everything else other than that just gets packed up and ready for the next camping trip. All right. I want to say Dave has taught me a lot about outdoor cooking, a lot about camping. I've enjoyed some wonderful camping trips with him. We used to go hiking in the White Mountains. We've taken our families together, and one of the really nice things is that he's really broadened my horizons when it comes to cooking outdoors and making the outdoors more fun, because who doesn't like a good meal? Obviously I do. Life is good. Dave, I want to thank you for taking the time to come out with us and share some Dutch oven cooking.
Maybe we could set up in the parking lot and make some breakfast.
When we do that, we'll be sure to invite you. But until next time, Foxborough, until you see us cooking out in the parking lot, I hope you have a great day. Take care, Foxborough.